rather 3 members who have stepped out from the interviews, and that is Tawanda Matope, Christopher Dube Banda, and Zandi Kumwenda. The first 2 have been removed from your big file. This one. And they are in alphabetical order. Open your files in this form. Have you crossed him out? Tawanda Matope. Yeah, so it's out. Yes, Zendi Kamwendo, I think still appears. So cross him out. Zendi Kamwendo. Panelists, are we ready? Thank you. First candidate is Ottomani Gibson, the Reverend. Call the person. Good morning, Reverend.
Good morning, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you for coming for the interview for the ZAG Commission. We expect you to answer very concisely, but very substantially as well. Don't give us your background because we have information in our files.
indebted, Mr. Speaker.
First question. What is your understanding of corruption? Can you switch on your mic?
Corruption that has been believed to be a cancer that has dangerously affected our country is an act whereby one solicits, by act of commission or omission, a bribe in kind or in cash, whatever method that can actually be delivered to him or her, with the result of benefiting to the detriment of the public or the state.
You're done?
I'm done, Speaker.
Thank you. Next question. What is your understanding of the independence of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission in the performance of its constitutional mandate?
In the performance of its constitutional mandate, when we talk of independence, we are saying ZAC, Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, does not take instructions from anyone, but ensures that the interests of the public or the interests of the state are preserved by performing its duties with the due diligence, without influence or favor from anyone.
Thank you. Next question. What recommendations would you make to the government to enhance integrity and accountability in order to prevent corrupt practices in the public and private sectors?
Accountability is an issue that should be spearheaded in all spheres of influence, that is in the public and the private sector. What do I mean? I would recommend to the government of Zimbabwe to consider the people like the clergy, as I stand for the clergy, the people of influence in the social, economic, technological advances of our country, that their involvement in this would bring and ensure accountability of all the people that are seen and are active in the doing of their duties in the due course, as well as arrange and amend all irregular or complexities that are found in our laws. Because some of the regulations that we have are inconsistent with the fight against corruption, Mr. Speaker said.
Thank you. Honorable Nambwe.
What measures do you propose to enhance the capacity of the Commission in the conduct of its work?
In response to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, I would make recommendations that the Commission or members of the Commission should be trained in line with our Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2060, as well as our own sustainable turnaround of our economy, so that we see to it that Zimbabwe has gone miles in the fight against corruption.
Thank you. Honorable Zion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would like to find out from you, Reverend, in what ways do the functions of ZAC help to promote and develop a corrupt-free society in Zimbabwe?
ZAC aims at making recommendations, aims at effecting arrests that are corruption-related, theft, and also to detect issues of illicit financial flows and other duties that may be prescribed to the Commission. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you. Honorable Kumalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. A very good morning, Reverend.
Good morning.
Walk us through a situation where you had to deal with a case of corruption and how you dealt with it.
Thank you so much. In my service of 13 years in investigations and the arrest of criminals in the Zimbabwe Republic Police, I met a lot of people who actually, initially with corruption was difficult to detect. By the end of the day, it needed us to go into the records of a service station personnel who was in Bulawayo, Golomane by that time. As we detected that case, it took us hours and days to study the documents that were there. As we studied documents, we recommended to the officer in charge how it had actually happened, and by the end of the day, we tried to arrest the accused person and to take him to court. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, our Reverend. You are excused.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Yeah.
Next candidate, Chafanza David. Mr. Chafanza David. Thank you. Thank you for coming for the interview. Please switch on your mic. The panel expect you to be concise but substantial in your responses. Don't give us too much background of yourself because we have it in your CV. Thank you. First question. What is your understanding of corruption?
My understanding of corruption is it is dishonesty, criminal activity, which is associated with a person or an organization which is in position of authority or influence.
Can you raise your voice, please?
Okay. My understanding,
Closer to the mic.
all right. My understanding of corruption is it's an case of how can I put it?
dishonesty, criminal activity which is committed by a person, an individual, or an organization in a position of authority or influence to benefit him or herself personally in inflicting activities.
In what?
Illicit,
Illicit.
sorry,
Okay.
activities.
Are you done? Second question. What is your understanding of the independence of Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission in the performance of its constitutional mandate?
Its independence is derived from the Constitution, Section 12, from 230 to 237, wherein it is independent from any direction or control of anyone except guide and supervision from the Parliament.
You done?
And in addition, yes, that should okay.
Third question. What recommendations would you make to the government to enhance integrity and accountability in order to prevent corrupt practices in the public and private sectors?
Adding to the momentum which is already there, wherein the Constitution, in terms of the legal framework, seems to cover as much in terms of protection, in terms of integrity, in terms of control. There might be need, of course, like already what is happening is that we've got a lot of other institutions, democracy in institutions which is being introduced by way of acts which are coming through. Like recently there's been the public, entity corruption, corporate governance bill, which seems to elaborate in terms of controls and supervision of operations and activities of public institutions, starting from the highest level, if I were to put it like there's the corporate governance units in the President's office, coming down to the line ministers themselves, into the institutions themselves, wherein there is the code of conduct, which is now in place to ensure that there is a fair distribution of power within and among the players, internal and external. We're talking of internal, the board itself, the shareholders, and the other stakeholders, like the suppliers, and down to the government itself.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chafanza, why do you think you are the most suitable candidate for appointment to ZAC?
Thank you. I am a public accountant by profession, and among the requirements or the qualifications of member is that qualification, and in addition to that, I also feel that the experience I have had both in public and private sector will add value to the commission and to the country in terms of addressing issues of corruption. And I also feel that my integrity and my professionalism will come in handy to support and add value.
Finished? Thank you. Next question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mike.
Mr. Chafanza, how would you deal with political or other influences to sweep corrupt practices under the carpet?
Switch on your mic, please.
First and foremost, I feel the Constitution protects members of the Commission in terms of how they should handle themselves once they are appointed. You have to be non-political, non-partisan, and you should handle issues in that professional manner. And I feel with that in mind, I should be able to address issues without fear, favor, or prejudice.
Thank you. Abeokan? Yes.
Mr. Chafanza is a member of the National Standing Committee from MDC. Would phone you and say, do not pursue that case. That person that you're dealing with is my cousin. What would you do?
First thing is to address the member just like any other citizen without reference to his political qualification, because I'm not entitled to address issues on political grounds. And then after that, I also explain and convince him that I'm responsible for addressing corruption in the country with or without reference to any political connotation or relationships, because he needs on right that issue of addressing relating to politics or favors. It's corruption on its own. If I can address it as it will be like cronyism, if I can put it that way, and I'll be supporting corruption once I address it in that way. Otherwise, I'll simply get as much information and address or refer refer the matter to plenary of the commission.
Thank you. Honorable Konese.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chapanza, who are the key stakeholders in the fight against corruption in Zimbabwe? And if you were to be appointed to the commission, how would you collaborate with them as a commission?
Thank you. If I were to start maybe with the reports which I've been going through in terms of key stakeholders, the first and foremost would be the generality of Zimbabweans themselves. But if I'm to narrow down to the reports which have been coming through the Zimbabwe, the Transparency International analysis, it's mainly focusing on public institutions. And in this case, I'll have to address by way of stakeholders who are related to those public institutions, like suppliers, investors, government institutions, private institutions, businesses in general, and maybe I can put that up to that point.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. You are free.
Yeah.
panelists. We don't want to see your scoring in your handwriting. You tick as explained. You tick as explained. If you are giving someone 2 points, tick under the column 2 across horizontally of that question. If it was question number 5, you go across. If you are giving 2, you come vertically, you tick. So we have seen 2 that have not followed the instructions. Secondly, the name of the candidate is the person we are interviewing. The interviewer is you, the panelist. Print your name there. And then at the bottom, as an interviewer, you sign your usual signature. So there was a Nganga here who told us that we needed to sniff out the minor entry and wrong entries. Secondly, let us not ask supplementary questions. Some questions can be rhetorical, therefore suggesting an answer to the candidate. That's impermissible. Can we have now the next candidate, who is Mr. Chaiva, Mr. Gabriel Chaiva. Morning, Mr. Chaiva, and welcome to this interview for that. Thank you very much. Please answer your questions concisely but substantially. Don't go into your background because we have got your CV. And you have 20 minutes to answer 6 questions. The first question, what is your understanding of corruption, Mr. Chaiva?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Any act of commission or omission, whether directly or indirectly by yourself or otherwise by an agent, which has got the cumulative effect of accruing some financial benefit or some other benefit to yourself. That, in my view, is a corrupt act.
You finished?
Yes, sir.
Second question. What is your understanding of the independence of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission in the performance of its constitutional mandate?
Well, when we talk about the independence of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, we are essentially saying it must not be under the direction of anybody or any person who might wish to influence the manner in which it will conduct its own business. So the independence essentially is founded on the premise of the fact that it is not under the direction of anybody, except for, in this case, in our constitution, it says it must report to Parliament. But otherwise, the manner in which it conducts itself, the manner in which it does its own business, it compiles its report, it decides on who to prosecute and who not to prosecute, must not be an aspect that must be directed by anybody else except the commissioners themselves. And this is provided for in the Constitution.
Thank you. The third question, what recommendations would you make to the government to enhance integrity and accountability in order to prevent corrupt practices in the public and private sectors?
At the moment, when we look at the various legislative environment that governs issues pertaining to corruption, and more principally, if you look at the Criminal Law Codification and Reform Act, which embraces a lot of issues that are to do with corruption, as well as, of course, the Prevention of Corruption Act, Chapter 9, I think 16. There are certain loopholes that exist within those respective legislative environments. For instance, there is no element of vicarious liability of those who abet and who assist in the commission of a corrupt act. For instance, how do you find the chief executive of a company guilty of a corrupt act and not the financial directors and other clerks who were responsible, knowing very well that what they were doing and conducting themselves was actually a corrupt act? How do you exempt them from being vicariously liable for the commission of that corrupt act? So one of the strongest recommendations I'll make to government is that we need to obviously harmonize the entirety of the legislative environment and synthesize all the laws so that it becomes one big piece of legislation that can decisively deal with issues of corruption. Take, for instance, the bank use and promotion, the promotion of bank use and suppression of suppression of what? The bank use piece of legislation. It is a law that is specifically targeting the financial misbehavior within the banking sector. It doesn't deal with other aspects which can happen in various sectors. In some other legislation as well, do not deal with the issues that are also related to the aspects of the banking sector. So we need all those legislation to be harmonized so that we are dealing with one very comprehensive piece of legislation that can encompass and embrace all aspects of corruption in all sectors of our country. So it's one of the recommendations I'll make to government, that it's important that we make a piece of law that is clear, that is not disputable, and that everyone else throughout the country can know that there is this piece of legislation that actually can be used against corruption. And another aspect which also I feel needs to be impressed on government is that we need a Whistleblowers Protection Act which protects witnesses to aspects of corruption. They must be granted some element of immunity so that at workplaces people are not victimized for having made reports on matters of corruption. And these are some of the things that I would definitely recommend the government to enhance the credibility of the fight against graft.
Thank you. Next question, Honorable Chombo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, Mr. Chombo. Can you highlight to this panel aspects of yourself which show integrity, knowledge, and experience in administration or prosecution or investigation of crime or general suitability for appointment to that?
Well, first and foremost, I believe I am a person of integrity. in the sense that not once in the entirety of my life have I been, even in the remotest of sense, been accused of financial or moral malfeasance. Not at all. That I think, looking at my age now at 54, and having not gone through all those kind of things, despite the fact that I have been involved in matters public, and there's been no accusations in respect of that. In addition to that, I believe that with my background in mathematics, I'm a mathematician, a mathematics teacher, I would like to call myself, and having qualified as a chartered secretary, therefore giving me the edge on financial matters and accounting and auditing, as well as the aspects of the law. I believe that those who have been responsible for financial misdemeanors, stealing from coffers of the state or the private sector, will have a very tough time. They can't escape. I'm well conversant with aspects of international financial reporting standards. Financial accounting is required by the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. They have nowhere to go, because when it matters of figures, I'm very conversant about that. I'm also quite experienced in terms of administration. For the past 20 years, I've been involved in the development of small to medium enterprises and setting up companies, setting up accounting records, internal control mechanisms, reporting standards, general administration of those small to medium enterprises. So I want to believe that for the past 20 years, with that experience, I can bring it to the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission for the betterment of the nation.
Thank you. Next question from Honorable Dr. Bungu.
Mr. Chair,
Can you switch on your mic?
it doesn't seem to work.
It doesn't seem to work.
Yes. What is the relationship between the Commission and other agencies of the state in combating corruption?
The Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission works hand in hand with the Prosecutor General's Office. They also work hand in hand with the Zimbabwe Republic Police. It is actually in the Constitution that they can direct the Commissioner General of Police to carry out specific investigations. And naturally, I want to believe that having working with state security agents, they also can work with the intelligence agents of this kind. So that relationship is established in the sense that in order to drive a fight against corruption, you have to use the police as the arresting officers, you have to use the Prosecutor General as the prosecuting arm. In our Constitution, I noticed that the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission does not seem to have arresting powers, does not seem to have prosecutorial powers as well. So in that respect, they are interrelated. They work as one entity to the final element of convicting persons accused of corruption.
Thank you. Next question is from Honorable Mzuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chaipa, in what ways do you think the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission can investigate and expose cases of corruption in the public and private sector?
I want to believe that one of the weaknesses, without obviously undermining previous commissions, one of the biggest weaknesses, remember this commission was established way back, I think, when there was a SADC meeting in Blatta, 2001. So we've got about 18 years. I don't want to believe that the people in this country, in Zimbabwe, know what exactly is all about. It's not known. People in Mtauto, people in Buchiro, people in Mawangwe, people in Duluwazini, people in Plumtree, Otito, I don't think they have any idea about what the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission is all about. So there is need to conscientize the people of our country that there is an institution that can fight all forms of graft. a clerk who is in Majambus, for example, in country, how is he able to report a case of a headmaster who is engaging in some kind of corrupt activity? I think the institution of ZAC is not known. It is important, therefore, to enhance the communication of ZAC and the people of this country, establishing hotlines of communication so that people, in fact, ZAC should, in my view, be the buzzword in every Zimbabwean's mouth. Anyone who sees anything that is happening which is corrupt must be able to say, oh, fine, I'm picking up my phone call, I'm telling you or reporting this matter to ZAC. So in that way, I believe enhancing the communication, the publicity, and establishing centers of communication throughout the whole country can enhance the communication strategies of ZAC and hence in assisting combat crime.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your coming. You are now excused.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir.
Next candidate, Mrs. Caroline, sorry, Mr. Chefundo, Blessing. Panelists, the candidate has not shown up. So can we start collecting those papers? The scoring sheets, can they be collected because some have been written on? Collect all the scripts, scoring scripts. And issue new ones. Mrs. Chipumira Caroline. Good morning, Mrs. Chipumira, and welcome to this interview session. We ask you to be concise in your responses, but also be substantial. Don't go too much to your background because we are aware of your CV, and the interview is for 20 minutes. So you have time to yourself. First question. Are you ready? First question. What is your understanding of corruption? Please switch on your mind.
Thank you very much. My understanding of corruption is flouting of any rule or regulation for purposes of private gain. That's how I understand corruption.
You're done. Second question. What is your understanding of the independence of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission in the performance of its constitutional mandate?
I think the commission will be independent in as far as it performs its work without, it has to have no interference from other arms of government.
Finished? Third question. What recommendations would you make to the government to enhance integrity and accountability in order to prevent corrupt practices in the public and private sectors?
I would recommend that people who are put into positions should be put in positions as a result of merit and not these other issues of being liability, cronyism, tribalism, and things like that. I would prefer professional people with merit.
Next question. Honorable Secretary.
Mrs. Chipumira, what measures do you propose to enhance the capacity of the Commission in the conduct of its work?
I think what I would wish or what I would bring to the Commission is to ensure that we have a proper administrative system where we have processes and systems that are really in place and laid down procedures in the method of doing things. That's what I would propose.
Next question. Honorable Mohali.
Why would you
corruption. I really hate corruption. And the way I was brought up in a very upright family where I have Christian values and where I actually think it is important for the people to have values. So I'm actually, I've got passion for fairness and justice, and I've got passion for people who follow processes and procedures and systems so that it betters everybody and not private individuals.
You done? Next question, Honorable Committee.
Thank you. What powers are conferred by the Constitution and relevant statutes which enable SAC to achieve its objectives?
SAC is empowered by Section, I think, 255, if my memory is correct.
Don't worry about the questioner. Look at me, yeah?
It's empowered to look into all issues in relation to corruption, to investigate them, and then to ensure that they hand over the investigations to the police if there's need for prosecution. They are also mandated to ensure they put into place systems and strategies whereby in our daily lives we are also combating corruption. Instead of waiting for corruption to happen, we need also to be in a position to prevent it and to be advocates for good governance so that our nation is not of corrupt people.
Thank you. Thank you for coming at the end of the interview. The next candidate is Mr. Chinyoka. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Chinyoka.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming. Please answer the questions concisely, but substantially as well. Don't dwell on your background because we have your CV. And you have 20 minutes to answer 6 questions. Thank you. The first question, please switch on your mic. The first question is, what is your understanding of corruption?
Corruption is a cancer that undermines the proper functioning of the institutions of state. It is when certain entities, polities, or people in a country, due to their access to one of either political power, resources, or people in power, can subvert the proper functioning of institutions, the proper functioning of services, the
improper delivery of services for their own gain or for the benefit of their friends. Corruption is something which maybe to the general public involves politicians making money, or people connected to politicians making money. But corruption also involves what people like Daniel Kaufman have called legal corruption, which is when people who have access to laws or law-making powers can make some things legal, but which to the general public do not pass the smell test. I'll give you an example. We have recently in this country read of a member of parliament importing a very expensive motor vehicle into this country without paying duty, because there's a law that allows members of parliament to do this. Now, if there's a law that allows it, fine. But if you ask my mother in the village, if there's something particularly wrong about a doctor being unable to import a car worth $50,000 into this country without paying duty, and a member of parliament importing one that is more than $500,000 without paying duty, they will tell you that the first one should be allowed, the second one isn't. So corruption is many things. Many societies choose to define corruption in ways that they are comfortable with. In this country, there are many things that we allow, which we don't call corruption, but which are. So corruption is, my understanding of corruption is that, as I said at the beginning, it's a cancer that undermines the proper functioning of institutions. That's all? Yes, that's all I want to say on this question.
Thank you. Next question. What is your understanding of the independence of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission in the performance of its constitutional mandate?
My understanding is that the constitutional arrangements almost, and I say almost, give the ZAC independence. It's not ideal. I wouldn't, for example, say that ZAC should be appointed by a combination of politicians, because much of corruption is done by politicians. But sometimes you have to make leeway for appointment procedures. But I think that the functioning of ZAC is probably problematic if you want to say that is this an independent institution in terms of both the practicalities and the and what the law says. You have on 31st of January a commission that resigned or was fired. We are not sure. I think they were fired because when we saw the names of people who wanted to be commissioners, many of them were back on it. So if they had resigned, they wouldn't be, asking to come back again. So they were probably fired. Now, if you are in a body that is supposed to be independent, conceivably you shouldn't be fired. But that's not to say that I don't think they should have been fired, because I think they should have been. Because in their case, I think that they thought that the Anti-Corruption Commission, I think they thought the anti was silent, but that's just me. I think that when you have a body of this nature, being appointed today, you already have a chairperson. So the processes when the chairperson was appointed, there were newspaper stories about her appointment. Fine upstanding judge, very successful in a field, but you had newspaper stories about her appointment some denigrating things being said about a marital status, that speaks to problems in the appointment, because you're already undermining a person who is going to be leading a very important institution. So there's something wrong in an appointment process that is not secure enough to protect the people you are appointing from this kind of attacks. But that was there. So you have a body that is already set up, in my view, to fail. So what do I think about the independence of ZAC? I think that what you need when you appoint, however many people you are going to appoint out of the 38 of us, is to try and find people who, I don't know, who are going to not only be able to withstand the unfair attacks on their person, on the basis of who they are, on the basis of who they support in politics, on the basis of whatnot, but you also then need to hope that these people are going to hold together enough, first of all, to carry out the mandate, but secondly, to be able to carry out this mandate. And what do I mean by this? The ZAC budget is given by the Minister of Finance. And that budget has no, in my view, doesn't consider at all the enormity of the task. So in fact, what you have is a ZAC, which is in effect firefighters. Their job is to fight corruption, which is already there. You know, things that are already happening now. Arrest Chivayo, arrest whatever his name is. That's what they're supposed to do. When in fact, a body of this nature is supposed to be properly funded to have a good core of investigators. This one doesn't have. It takes them from the police. Where is most of the corruption coming from in the courts and whatnot? The police, the prosecutors, the magistrates. Yes? But the investigators for ZAC are who? The police. Do they have prosecutorial power? They don't. Who do they ask to prosecute? The NPA. Who is corrupt? Who is losing dockets at the court? Who is not showing up at court when you have important cases happening? It's the prosecutors. So, yes, we want this to be independent. But what do I think? I don't think this one, without a lot of investment in policy making, at the level of policy making, to say what kind of ZAC do we need? I don't think this one is going to be that independent.
You finished?
Yes, I'm giving more time for, I'm told there's 4 questions.
There are 6.
Oh, yes, then definitely finished.
The third question, what recommendations would you make to government to enhance the integrity and accountability in order to prevent corrupt practices in the public and private sectors?
Well, the first recommendation I would make is to say, if you want people to fight corruption or to work towards stopping corruption, you probably need to pay them more. If you have a prosecutor whose net salary is 900 RTGS, prosecuting somebody who defrauded a ministry of $4 million US, I think it doesn't take a very long telephone call between that prosecutor and somebody who is a friend of this person to say there's other ways in which we can solve this case. If you are going to have a prosecutor who travels, and this is something that's actually happening, travels from Gweru, where they live, to go and prosecute cases in Vuma, because they don't have a house in Vuma, but this prosecutor doesn't have a car, who is going to get a lift from a defense lawyer, who is going to represent the same person that she or he is going to prosecute in Vuma. The conversation over 110 kilometers is going to result in justice being compromised. You need to pay people more. You can't expect, I don't want to also be talking about caste, but if you have a Honda Fit kind of salaries, You can't expect a Ferrari kind of justice system. You can't. Prosecutors need to be paid more. Judges, magistrates especially, need to be paid more. Disincentivize them from seeing the attractiveness of corruption. And also, if you pay people more, you attract people that are capable. You attract people who are not looking to go and fight corruption in order so that they make money. But you are attracting people who are going there because they know that their families will be well looked after, their families will be well cared for. These people don't have medical aid. The second thing that you probably need to do, and this might sound like a contradiction, is that, again, Daniel Kaufman, World Bank economist, says, one does not fight corruption by fighting corruption. This sounds contradictory, but it's true. The moment you find yourself running a healthcare system in which you prioritize hospitals, it's because you have failed to prevent people from being sick. So the moment you find yourself in all your anti-corruption fight, focusing on arresting people who have already been corrupt, it means you have failed to prevent corruption. What you need to do is to look at how do you stop people being corrupt. Instead of arresting someone who lied that they could build a solar power station in Uganda for failing to do so, find out what is the system that allowed this person to be given a contract to do something like that when he had never built a tuck shop anywhere. That is what you need to go and fix. So that is how you stop corruption. You need to stop things, the kind of things that allow what we then see as the manifestations. We should stop treating the wounds. We should treat the causes. And those causes come from many things. In the public sector, one of the biggest problems we have is that we have boards of government institutions manned by people who are not qualified to do the jobs that they are appointed to do in those boards. You have parastatals that deal with extractive minerals, for example, where the CEO is an economist or an accountant. What does this person know about the kind of things that might happen there? So we need to hire people properly. We need to promote meritocracy in our institutions, and we need to make sure that when we then get bodies like this one, like the one you want to build, that its job is to go and try and foster an understanding or foster an appreciation of what are the ills that corruption causes? What are the kind of things that you build a core of people who understand that it's their job everywhere to stop corruption. When people say ZANU-PF is corrupt, because this has been said to me, ZANU-PF is corrupt, and then somebody picks up a phone and says, do you have any friends who might help me move my money on a 1:1?
This Noka,
yes.
I indicated that you have got 20 minutes.
Yes.
You still have 3 other questions to answer.
Oh, I was almost finishing. But
what 3 other questions to answer?
Yes.
And you are left with 5 minutes.
Oh,
so
okay.
If you can be concise.
Okay.
Can you wind up?
No, I was in the process of saying many times people don't realize they are being corrupt when they are. So what you need is organizations like this one, commissions like this one, to deal more with educating people, not the firefighting after the fact.
Thank you. Question number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Chinyoka, what powers are conferred by the Constitution and relevant statutes which enable ZAC to achieve its objectives?
Well, when you say relevant statute, I would say that there isn't a relevant statute because the Act has not yet been aligned with the Constitution. But the Constitution gives ZAC the power to investigate corruption, although it doesn't then give ZAC investigatory power. So the short answer, because in view of the time I have, is that not very many, but there's good guidance in the Constitution in terms of the broad outline of what powers it has. Most important one being the fact that ZAC can liaise with the NPA and with the police in fighting corruption.
Thank you. Question number 5.
Thank you, Mr. Chinoka. I've listened attentively to you, and I want to understand from you that if you are appointed, what will be your contribution in view of many things that you feel are not in order and the structure of ZAC that is there?
Thank you. The main one would be that I would think that as a top priority, ZAC should seek to have the Special Anti-Corruption Unit made part of itself and being its prosecutorial and investigatory unit. So the Special Anti-Corruption Unit, which we already have, ZAC should try to get legislative or policy approval to have that unit as part of ZAC so that it carries out its investigation and prosecution, so that ZAC does not rely on NPA for prosecutions, does not rely on the police for certain investigations, because ZAC is not able to speak to whether or not those organizations are not compromised, and therefore its task at the moment is dependent on organizations whose probity it can't speak to.
Thank you. Next question. Honorable Kumano.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chinoka, in what ways do you think the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission can investigate and expose cases of corruption in the public or private sector and private sector?
Thank you. At the risk of sounding pessimistic, I would say that at the moment it's very limited because it has to rely on other bodies. But in my conception, ZAC must have its own investigatory and prosecutorial arm. And I've, in answer to the previous question, just said that. The power in the Constitution, certainly, in my view, ZAC has the power to do this in the Constitution. But I don't think that there is a legislative environment that has been put in place to allow this to happen, which then leaves ZAC at the mercy of relying on people who might be part of the same cartels, the same syndicates, rather, I prefer that word, syndicate, that are responsible for why certain cases fail. You have police people who, as a practicing lawyer, I've recently been to court, and my client was asked by, it was a ZAC investigated case, was asked by the police officer, is your lawyer known? Now, this question to him, I think he was being, I think he was just being funny. He said, yes, he's known, he's Chinoka. He said, no, I mean, is he known like this? So they have people. So you are referred, police people will refer you, will refer an accused person to a particular lawyer that they know this lawyer is part of a syndicate that is then able to make the relevant telephone call to the prosecutor or the magistrate for the right kind of arrangements to be made. Now, that kind of thing needs to stop. And the only way you stop that is if you empower that to investigate its own cases and prosecute its own cases. Then you won't have blame on failings of prosecution on other bodies. It is a shame that even if you, wherever you go back to, let's go back to beginning of current president's term. It is a shame that we don't have a single person who is going to sleep tonight at Shkurubi on a prison dinner having been convicted of corruption in a country with so many corrupt people like we do. It is a shame. The reason for that is because we don't have an effective corruption fighting body. And that is that, even if you have all these commissioners, that's not going to change until we have investigatory and prosecutorial powers independent of these bodies that are rotten to the core.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chinoka, we've come to the end of the interview, and once more, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
shall have a break now for 15 minutes. We'll come back at 25 past 11. Sharp.
We are also coming up.
Yes, tea time. Leave your stuff here. It's very secure.